Agitatorium nostrum in nomine Domini.
Qui fecit veterum.
Immortale Dei, Pope Leo XIII. We left off on page 8. So yes, St. Thomas teaches that the purpose of the state is to enable a sufficiency of goods. Enable a sufficiency of goods for people to live with and live by in order to live virtuous. So let's just pick up with the divinity has provided that he is born into the joining and gathering of men, page 8 on the top. Since it is domestic and then also civil society which alone can supply a complete sufficiency of life, right? People really can't live on their own. They always have to go shopping. They always have to pick up something. They have to, if they're not mechanics, they have to bring the car into the mechanic. Not everybody is doctors, so they have to go see a doctor. So a lot of these things, you need society, and society is built by God. We're born into families. Did God create authority in society?
Yes.
You're telling me that governmental authority comes from God?
Yes.
But the government's all evil. All authority is evil, isn't it?
No.
I thought all authority is a repression of my freedom.
No. On the contrary. The right establishment of authority allows one to live freely.
Yes, when the authority does their job, and yes, but even a bad authority their authority still does come from God. But they'll have a harsher judgment, won't they? Because in truth, any society cannot persist unless someone stands at its head. Right? Even a bunch of boys in a basketball court. Someone's going to say, hey, let's get a game to go together. All right, you be captain, I'll be captain. Or you be captain, you be captain, and let's make teams. And here's the rules. Right? Automatically, you have to have authority. Right? So, but God established that in society, moving each one by an effective and similar influence to a common intention. It comes about that authority is necessary. Authority is what?
Necessary.
Civili hominum communitati necessarium esse auctoritatem. Authority is necessary for the civil community of men by which it might be ruled, which no different from society also arises by nature, and therefore by God himself, its author. So the Pope here is saying something. It's not just because I'm the Pope and I say this is the way it is, so it's the way it is. No, as all the popes say, no, it's in the nature of things. God built it this way. There must be authority, otherwise society is in chaos. There must be one head of the family and not two or three. Otherwise it's chaos, right? From which it follows
that public power does not exist through itself, but from God. For God alone is the truest and greatest Lord of things, to whom all things whatsoever must submit and serve. Thus, for anyone to have the right to rule, they may not receive it from any place except from that highest prince of all things, God. There is no power but from God. Romans chapter 13, verse 1. But the right of rule is not in itself unavoidably joined with any form of the republic. It can be taken up rightly in one way or another, in a way useful and truly effective for the common good. But in whatsoever form, the princes of the republic must always consider the highest governor of the world, God, and put him forth for themselves as an example and law in the administration of the state.
So is the Pope saying that every government has to be a democracy?
No.
Has to be aristocracy?
No.
Has to be a monarchy?
No.
What's his point here?
Whatever government it is, to put God first, acknowledge his laws, and make
Yes.
make him basically the model of the law.
Model and realize that all authority comes from him. So, so those three ways of governing, monarchy, aristocracy, democracy, can function. And function well as long as God is acknowledged and respected in his laws. Right? Because the modern thinking, especially in the West, it has to be democracy or it won't work. It has to be democracy, that's the best. It's freedom. Well, no. Look how enslaved the West is now.
And if you consider from a historical point of view, for 1,000+ years the world has survived under monarchies.
Yes.
And only recently, less than 500 years, has the world experienced democracies.
True.
And it's already falling apart.
Yes. Democracy is kind of built in to fall apart. It needs, and even one of the so-called founding fathers said that if men aren't virtuous, this democracy won't hold. I think that was Thomas Jefferson. And there's a truth there. There's a truth there. St. Thomas Aquinas says the best form of government, proven, is monarchy. Because you have one leader leading all to one end. So it's much simpler. And he's seen as the father of his people. So in the Middle Ages, they really loved their king and the queen. They loved them. It was like a family. That's our father. For God.
For God, as in things which are seen, gives rise to secondary causes, in which the divine nature and action can be perceived by a certain reason, and which lead to the end to which this universe of things tends. So in civil society, he wishes that there be leadership, and that they who bear it bring back a certain image of the divine power and divine providence into the human race. Therefore, rule must be just, not tyrannical, but as if paternal, because the most just power of God is in men, and is joined with paternal goodness. It must truly be wielded for the good of the citizens, because those who preside over others preside because of this one cause, that they defend the good of the state. Nor by any pact may the civil authority be committed to serve the advantage of one or of the few, because it was constituted for the common good of all. But if those who are in charge should fall into unjust rule, if they sin from recklessness or pride, if they take counsel for the evil of the people, they know that they must finally render their reason to God, and it will be more severe the holier their office, or the higher level of dignity they obtain.
Okay. Does he say that if they're bad and they're evil, they lose their office?
No. Of course that's what he said. No.
Sedevacantists say that. You got a bad pope, he's no longer pope. That's just so unreasonable. It's refuted by all the history of the Old Testament. Was Solomon always good king?
No.
No, he was at one point a scandal. He had over 200 concubines, 200 girlfriends, and they led him into apostasy. Did he lose his kingship? No. Did Eli, the high priest, negligent in the temple, letting his sons have drinking parties and fornication parties in the temple? Did he lose his priesthood? No. So, it defies reason to say, well, we have a bad pope, he's not pope. It's just not reasonable. Because authority comes from God, and those who hold it will have to answer for those positions. Right?
Even, if I may add, even Saul, who was forsaken by God and his lineage cut off from the inheritance of the kingdom of Israel, God did that first. Anointed David through the prophet Samuel. But David had many opportunities to remove Saul, but he didn't touch him. In fact, he punished one of his soldiers who took it upon himself to obey the false command of Saul and kill him.
Yeah, how do you punish him?
He killed him
Had him killed. Yeah.
because he touched the Lord's anointed.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So all the Old Testament teaches us, yeah, you can have a bad pope. Caiaphas, who could be more wicked than Caiaphas? And yet Christ, standing, the living Messiah, the true God, standing face to face with the, so to speak, Pope of the Old Testament, the high priest. He respects his authority because Christ was silent and he didn't speak until when?
Until the high priest said, I adjure thee by the living God. Tell us whether thou art the Son of the living God.
So I think this is important. And I know the Sedevacantans have tons of arguments. They quote this Pope and that Pope and they have... But, you know, when you get down to the brass tacks, society would fall apart if every day, oh, he's a bad bishop, he's no longer bishop. Oh, he's a bad pope, he's no longer pope. You got chaos, right? It'd be chaos. And there are parts of canon law, I'm not a canon lawyer and I can't quote them off the top of my head, but there's provisions in canon law that when you have these bad characters, they don't, and nowhere does it say they lose their office. It'd be just chaos, just absolute chaos, a wreckage. And that's not how God works. All right, where do we leave off?
The mighty shall be mightily tormented. Right there.
What page again?
Page 10.
In the middle?
The top. The top.
Okay, yeah. Go on.
The mighty shall be mightily tormented. From Wisdom, chapter 6, verse 7. Thus certainly a willing and honest reverence of citizens accompanies the majesty of rule. And indeed, when once they enter into that mindset that those who rule exert power by the authority given by God, they feel the duty to be just and owed. And hearing what is said by those same princes, they excel in compliance and faith with the same likeness of piety which pertains to children towards parents. Let every soul be subject to higher powers. Romans chapter 13, verse 1.
Yes. Read on loud and clear, Tony.
Of course, to scorn legitimate power.
Louder.
Of course, to scorn legitimate power, in whatever person it exists, is no more allowed than to resist the divine will. If some people resist it, they rush to their willing ruin. He that resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist, purchase to themselves damnation.
Yeah, so he's speaking of when an authority is doing their duty, right? And not like the Pope wrecking the church and going against church teaching. He's talking about someone like a Pius X and a good leader who actually is just and a good leader. To resist them would be sinful. Go on.
Wherefore, to cast aside obedience, and through the strength of the multitude, to call the republic to sedition, is a crime of majesty. Not only of human majesty, but also of divine majesty.
Go on.
It is clear that the state constituted by this principle must always, in its many and greatest duties, which join it to God, act sufficiently with public religion, nature and reason, which command everyone to worship God in a holy and religious way, because we are in his power, and because we must be turned back to him, binds the civil community by the same law. For men joined together in common society are in the power of God no less than individually, nor does society owe less thanks to God than the individual, by which author it joins together, by whose command it is preserved, by whose kindness it receives a countless abundance of the good things with which it abounds.
Okay, very, very powerful point. Powerful point right here. What is he saying? As the individual, so society.
That Christ is king not only of individuals, but he is king of society. He must rule in the state.
Right, because the society is made up of
Individuals.
and individuals have a duty of justice, to to glorify God, to obey Him and honor and adore Him, right?
Yes.
So if the individual is bound to do this, and society is many individuals, conclusion,
Many individuals are required to adore God and acknowledge Him.
Society is required.
and many individuals require an authority that established by God to govern. So both the authority and those governed must render to God what is due to God.
Yes.
You follow? It's a very, very important point. This shows how the Catholic teaching is grounded in nature. It's in the nature of things. That men adore the God who is God, their creator, their redeemer, their savior. This is why there must be the Catholic state. This is why there must be the reign of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So it's not just, we Catholics dream about monarchy and, Christ, we want His heart on the flag and we want His kingship because that's devotional. It's not devotional. It's hardcore facts built in the nature of things. Men must owe God adoration, obedience, and love. Individuals must do it, and society, and those who govern society they're supposed to be Catholic and obey the living Christ the King, the living God. And when they don't, it's a disaster, says Cardinal P. and Father Denis Fay and all the popes. And that's why when Archbishop Lefebvre dealt with the modernists in Rome, dealing with Cardinal Ratzinger, you mean to say that this is not the time for Christ the King? This is not the time for Catholic states? No, because Vatican II says we want no more Catholic states. It's freedom of all religions, religious liberty. States can be neutral on matters of religion. You mean Christ is no longer king? Well, that's for the Middle Ages, not now. This is the age of democracy. So Cardinal P, when he was talking to Napoleon III, Archbishop Lefebvre quotes this in his book, They Haven't Crowned Him. The Cardinal then says, Your Highness, if it's not now time for Christ to reign over your government, then it's not the time for your government to endure. It'll fall apart. And look at France now. It's completely fallen apart. Muslim invasions, Macron who has no spine, etc. But this is a very important point. One important point, it's not true because the Pope is saying it arbitrarily. Because a lot of people think that. Well, the Pope says it, therefore it's true. Well, okay, he does it with the authority, but even the popes are humble and say it's not true because I'm saying it. It's built in nature. It's built in the nature of things. Is religion, does it fall under prudence, justice, fortitude, or temperance? Does the virtue of religion, all virtues attached to those four cardinal virtues? Prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance. That's why they're called cardinal. Cardines, the door hinge. This door hinges and freely moves and stays upright because it's hanging on two, what? Hinges. Those are called cardines in Latin. So cardinal virtues are the hinges on which all other virtues hinge. So the virtue of religion, where does it fall under? Anybody take a wild guess?
Justice. Justitia.
Justice. It is a duty of justice to obey God, adore Him, love Him, serve Him. And it's a joy. It's the happiness of men. To serve God is to reign. To love God and keep His commandments is happiness. And it truly is. So this point, one, the Pope is saying it because it's built into nature. Two, as the individual, so society and the leaders of society must adore God. Hence, the words of our Lord, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, but Caesar must render to God the things that are God's too. Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar, and to God the things that are God's, says our Lord. But Caesar has to render to God what is God's, which is adoration, obedience, etc. So this is what's beautiful about this is it's the foundations for the Catholic state. And you have to admit, the American clergy, bishops and priests, have been very liberal. They have been liberal. They didn't promote the kingship of Christ. They didn't push for the Catholic state. That's my only, I know I get a little criticism about this, but that's my only respectful, charitable gripe with Bishop Sheen. He's a giant. He's a giant. I mean, he's a giant. He's a great preacher, and I'm glad his sermons are still available on internet, his conferences and talks. But do you ever hear him telling we need to push for the social reign of Christ over the United States? We want a Catholic government. Do you ever hear him saying that? We want the reign of the Sacred Heart of Jesus on our country, on our founding documents. They have to be revised. You don't hear that. And he may have had his reasons, right? But the Archbishop, it's thanks to Archbishop Lefebvre that you and I and all the society priests came to discover the social kingship of Jesus Christ. Because that was buried under the rug for 200 years in the USA. Right? When Pius IX came out with Quanta Cura and the Syllabus of Errors, you know what the bishops said in the US? They didn't teach it in the seminaries. You know what they did? They put it in the drawer and said, that's a European problem. This is America. We have a different form of government, and it's the best. But, okay, it might be the best. It can be the best still if Christ reigns. But if Christ doesn't reign, it's disaster. So what are the words in the mouths of the sodomites, abortionists, euthanasianists, and all these criminals promoting their crimes? What's the words they use?
My rights.
My rights. When we had prayed the rosary in front of the Supreme Court with numerous high school level kids, we were praying the rosary and with Father Tim Pfeiffer carrying the statue of Our Lady, and all these women came around with blood on their t-shirts and hangers on their head, shouting, 1, 2, 3, 4, we can't take this anymore. 5, 6, 7, 8, separate the church and state. They're liberals, and they see the problem. They're absolutely correct, but they're in favor of the heresy. But most Catholics don't see that far. They don't see what the popes are saying. You can't have separation of church and state. It's like separating body and soul. You have a monster. It's separating mom and dad. You don't have the family anymore. You need body and soul together. You need mom and dad together. You need church and state together under the reign of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And it's part of justice. It's part of the nature of things. And this is what's beautiful about this encyclical. Pope Leo XIII is showing it's not because I'm Pope and I say so. It's because it's in the nature of things. Man must adore Jesus Christ as God and King. And woe to priests and bishops who don't promote and preach the social reign of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. At the table reading, one of these times, I'd like to bring out Father Matteo Crowley. He was a great apostle of the devotion of the enthronement of the Sacred Heart in the home. And I have 2 books of his on his talks and sermons, and they're very beautiful. I think it'll be inspiring when we can. But Father Matteo was his great name. All right, we read on. Tony, wherefore?
Wherefore, just as it is permitted to no one to disregard his own duties towards God, and the greatest duty is to embrace in both mind and customs religion, not that which he might prefer, but that which God commands.
Okay, what's he talking about? Not that.
Which he prefers.
What's that?
The religion.
Yes. Not some religion he prefers, Protestant, Baptist, Anabaptist, Shaker, but that which
God commands.
is what?
the Catholic faith.
Go on, Tony.
and that which is evidently, with certain and the least doubtful judgments, the one true religion among all. In the same way, states cannot, short of wickedness, bear themselves as if God is altogether absent, or cast aside concern for religion as alien and nothing useful, or adopt indifferently which of the many types it pleases. And they absolutely must use in worshiping him that custom and manner by which God himself has shown that he wishes to be worshipped.
Okay, another powerful bomb right here. Does God want to be worshipped by gathering together, reading the Bible, clapping your hands, and having a good time?
No.
Is he pleased with that?
No.
But all Protestants do it. What's wrong with it? They mean well. But is that what God asked to be adored with?
No.
No. What does he want to be adored with? What does he want for true adoration? What's the only thing he looks at and is pleased with and glorifies?
The representation of the sacrifice of his divine Son.
Not representation. Not representation.
The representation in the
Mass.
sacrifice of the Mass. That's what God wants. He wants to see his own beloved Son on the altar. That's what pleases him. That's what the Mass is. And he's left orders. This is how we're to pray, how to worship, is to bring down God on the altar and then offer our humble prayers with him in the Mass. And that the only one that worships pleasing to God, objectively speaking, is the Catholic Church of tradition. We have to distinguish now. Is God pleased with the new Mass?
No.
No, it must infuriate him because they just make a joke of Jesus Christ. I think it's more insulting than the satanic black Mass. I really do. I think the new Mass is more insulting to God than the black Mass. Because he said, I would rather you were hot or cold. Right? I wish you were a Satanist or a saint. But because you have this goofy new Mass that dresses Christ up like Herod in a white suit and makes a mockery of him and makes Jesus into some hippie and some spineless Gandhi, I think God is more insulted by the new Mass than the satanic black Mass. Because the satanic black Mass, at least they're openly evil and they hate God and they desecrate the host and it's horrifying, it's evil, it's bad, but they're not trying to pretend they're friends of God. Well, with the new Mass, they pretend to be friends of God and they mock him, right? Knowingly or unknowingly, objectively speaking, it mocks God because it's a modernist system. So, God wants to be adored how?
Through the holy sacrifice of the Mass.
Yes, nothing else pleases him. Objectively speaking. Now, subjectively, all right, you get into another question. You know, the old lady at the new Mass, she doesn't know better, but she's praying her rosary. She's reading her old missal. She's at the new Mass. She doesn't understand what's going on in the church. Well, certainly God hears her prayer. Not through the new Mass, but from her heart. And he gives her grace, not through that filthy new Mass, but through his divine goodness. Right? Or even a Protestant who's just lost in Protestantism and trying to read the Bible, looking for the truth. God will hear that prayer and lead that soul by his grace to the Catholic faith of tradition. He will, because he's a loving and good Father. Right? In the United States, there were over, I forget, 10, 20, 30,000 converts a year in the 1940s and 50s. A year under Bishop Sheen's time. And he's the one that converted Bella Dodd. And she's the one that told him, I was one of the big communist infiltrators. We sent over 1,000 infiltrators into the seminaries, communist agents. AA 1025. She was behind that. She was in the United States. Bella Dodd. So another powerful point. I mean, this encyclical is just sledgehammer after sledgehammer of truth. All right? You follow that then? Reread that, Anthony, from the top of page 12 to the dash.
Okay. Just start on
Yeah, just start with, just go on the top.
Oh, okay. Themselves, that if God is altogether absent, or cast aside concern for religion as alien and nothing useful, or adopt indifferently which of the many types it pleases, and they absolutely must use in worshiping him that custom and manner by which God himself has shown that he wishes to be worshipped.
Guadalupe, go on.
Therefore, the name of God must be holy before princes, and it must be added to their particular duties, to embrace religion with grace, to defend it with goodwill, to protect it by the authority and command of the laws, nor to establish or decide anything which might be contrary to its safety. They also owe this to the citizens over whom they preside. For we, all men, are born and adopted for the final and highest of goods, located outside the fragility and brevity of this life, in heaven, to which all counsels must be referred. But because on this in every respect the full and complete happiness of men hangs, therefore it concerns the end of every individual to pursue him who has been remembered, that he may not fall among the many. Therefore it is necessary that a civil society born for the common utility, in upholding the prosperity of the republic, must so look after citizens that it not only brings in nothing in any way inconvenient for obtaining and gaining the highest and unchangeable good, which they seek by their own free will, but that it brings every opportunity that it can. It belongs especially to them whose duties join men to God, that works be given to the protection of religion in a holy and inviolate way.
Yeah, so imagine if Trump apparently be converted to Judaism 2 years ago. What a foolish step, horrible step, which won't save his soul. But let's just say he converted to Catholicism, and the real Catholicism, and started really looking for the good of the glory of God and his commandments guiding the United States laws. And he did what he could to rectify. God would bless his presidency, and it would be fruitful. And he would have a lot of enemies, but everyone would enjoy the benefits of it. Right? Children would be saved from being murdered in their mother's womb by the millions. Old people would be saved from being killed off by the euthanasia. Many children would be healthy and bright-eyed and strong and intelligent instead of autistic and having all kinds of heart problems because of the you-know-whats, thanks to Fauci. Right? So how different things would be under a Catholic state. How different, how good. And this is what the popes are promoting. Go on, please, Michael.
But what religion is true is not difficult to see for him who consults prudent and sincere judgments. For it is proven by many and brilliant arguments, by the truth, beyond doubt, of the prophecies, by the frequency of miracles, by the quickest propagation of the faith through the midst of enemies and the greatest obstacles, by the testimony of the martyrs, and by many other similar things, that only that one is true, which Jesus Christ both himself founded and entrusted to his church, to be defended and increased.
Okay, so here he's listing what's called the motives of credibility. So look at this paragraph carefully. So he's saying it's obvious to see what is the true religion. How do you know McDonald's, Anthony? You're driving down the highway. How do you know you're going to find a Big Mac there?
The yellow arch.
Yes. How do you know about Dairy Queen?
You see the sign?
Which says?
DQ.
Yeah, Burger King also has its sign. They all have their signs. The Catholic Church has its signs. There's 4 of them.
There's one holy, Catholic, and apostolic.
That tells you it's the true religion. And he's listing the motives of credibility. It's the true religion, and here's why. It is proven by many and brilliant arguments. So that's number one. The proof of many arguments, disputations that settle the argument. Arguments of authority, arguments of reason, arguments of history, arguments of... By the truth beyond doubt of prophecies. So second, prophecies. Name a prophecy that foretell the truth of our holy religion.
David prophesying about Christ, they have pierced my hands and my feet, they have numbered all my bones.
Yes. Did he prophesy Muhammad?
No.
No.
Did Joseph Smith?
No.
The idiot who founded the Shakers?
No.
More specifically, I think from the prophet Caius, I think it is, where he says, "From the rising of the sun even to its going down, my name is great among the Gentiles. For everywhere and in all places shall be offered up to me a pure sacrifice,
A clean
oblation."
oblation.
Yeah.
Clean, because it's not bloody, but it's mystically bloody.
Which, in the context of that and then of what he said, can only be the Catholic Church, because we alone have the sacrifice that is pure, clean oblation, pleasing
Yes.
to God.
Yes, that's right. It's only the Catholic Church that calls it a sacrifice. Protestants don't have a sacrifice. Not even Muslims have a sacrifice. And you can't have a true religion without a sacrifice. So Satanists are more of a true religion than Muslims and Protestants, because they have a real sacrifice. Animals, children, adults, women usually, especially virgin girls, and then sacred hosts. Another prophecy of the Old Testament. Who offered bread and wine?
Melchizedek. That's in the book of Genesis.
That's right. He's a living prophecy. He's a living prophecy. And okay, we'll pick up next time. Adjutorium nostrum in nomine Domini.
We fetch each other.